You have built apps used by millions. Your government cannot build a website that works on Chrome. This is not a coincidence. It is a system doing exactly what it was designed to do. India has some of the best software engineers in the world. Indian startups have built products, Zomato, PhonePe, Zepto, that are genuinely world-class in design and reliability. And yet open any state government portal, any ministry website, almost any public-facing digital service, and it feels like it was built in 2003 and never touched since. People usually blame laziness or corruption, but that is too simple. The real answer is a set of structural problems baked so deep into how governments procure and own software that bad websites are actually the rational outcome. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why these websites are broken and why they will stay broken unless something fundamental changes. Let us start at the very beginning. Before any website gets built, the government has to buy it. And the way governments buy software is through a procurement process that was originally designed to buy roads and bridges, not software. Here is how it works. A ministry or department identifies a need. They write a document called a request for proposal, an RFP. This document describes what they want built. Then vendors bid on it. The contract usually goes to the lowest bidder, who clears a basic eligibility bar. Think about what that means. The specification is written by bureaucrats who may not be technical. The evaluation is done by a committee that is legally required to justify every decision on paper. And the winner is whoever quoted the least money. You have just selected for the vendor who is most confident they can cut corners and not get caught. And the RFP itself is the problem even before the bidding starts. Because when you write requirements in advance for a software product, you are assuming you know exactly what you need before you have talked to a single user, before you have seen a single prototype. That is not how good software gets built. That is how software gets specified into mediocrity. Now, lowest bidder procurement is not inherently evil. For buying 10,000 chairs, you want the cheapest chair that meets the spec. A chair is a chair, but software is not a chair. Software quality is almost entirely invisible at the time of purchase. You cannot inspect it like a building material. A vendor can submit a beautiful demo, a polished proposal, and still deliver something that collapses under real traffic breaks on mobile or becomes impossible to maintain the moment the original developers leave. And here is the economics of it. If you are a vendor and you know you will be evaluated on price, and the government has no strong mechanism to penalize bad delivery after the contract is signed, then your optimal strategy is: quote low to win the contract, deliver the minimum viable work to avoid legal default, and move on. There is a term for this in economics: adverse selection. The procurement process systematically filters out the vendors who care about quality, because caring about quality costs money, and money loses bids. The vendors who win government contracts the most consistently are not the best at building software. They are the best at writing proposals and managing government relationships. Those are completely different skills. Here is something that will seem obvious once you hear it, but is almost never talked about. Every good digital product in the world has a product owner. Someone whose job it is to care about whether users can actually use the thing. Someone who loses sleep when the site is down. Someone who can make a call at 11 p.m. and get something fixed. Government websites do not have this person. The IAS officer who signed off on the project has rotated to a different ministry. The vendor who built it has delivered and moved on. The IT department that maintains it has no mandate to improve it, only to keep it technically running. And no elected official is going to stake their reputation on whether a form submission flow has 3 steps or 7. There is no one with both the authority to change the product and the incentive to make it better. Compare that to any startup. The PM is on call. The founder checks NPS scores at breakfast. Users complain on Twitter, and someone is assigned to it within the hour. The entire incentive structure is oriented toward the product getting better over time. Government software has the opposite incentive structure. Once it is shipped and the contract is closed, the safest thing for everyone involved is to not touch it. There's another force that keeps bad websites alive long after they should have been replaced: vendor lock-in. When a vendor builds a government system, they often build it in a way that only they can maintain: proprietary database schemas, undocumented APIs, custom frameworks with no public documentation. Sometimes, and this is not rare, the source code is never handed over to the government at all. The result: when the contract ends, the government cannot simply hire someone else. They have to re-engage the same vendor or rebuild from scratch. Rebuilding from scratch costs more than the original contract, so they re-engage the same vendor. At whatever price that vendor names. This is not an accident. It is a business model. A vendor who makes themselves irreplaceable has a customer for life. And in government, the customer is paying with public money, so there is no existential pressure to ever switch. The website stays bad because the vendor has no incentive to improve it, and the government has no leverage to demand it. Now let us talk about the people inside the system, because it is easy to assume that bureaucrats simply do not care. That is wrong. Most of them are intelligent, educated people. The problem is what they are rewarded for. A bureaucrat's career advances based on seniority, postings, and most critically, not making mistakes. In most government systems, the downside of a bad decision is career ending. The upside of a brilliant innovation is a certificate and a paragraph in an annual report. So if you are a rational bureaucrat and someone asks you to approve a modern design system that breaks from precedent, what is your incentive? The risk is all yours. The credit, if it works, will be diffuse and delayed. The blame, if it fails, is immediate and personal. The safe move is always to approve what was approved before. Use the same vendor. Demand the same spec. Change nothing that cannot be justified by a paper trail. This is not corruption. This is not stupidity. This is a perfectly rational response to a broken incentive structure, and it produces predictably broken websites. The last piece is perhaps the most fundamental. Even if you fix procurement, even if you create product ownership, even if you break vendor lock-in, you still need someone who knows how to design for a human being. UX, user experience, is not decoration. It is the practice of understanding how a real person, in a real context, tries to accomplish a real goal. It requires research, testing, iteration, humility about what you assumed versus what users actually do. Government technology culture has almost none of this. There is no civil service track for UX designers. RFP documents have line items for servers, for software licenses, for development hours, but almost never for user research. The concept of testing with real users before launch is so foreign to most government IT projects that suggesting it in a procurement meeting would genuinely confuse people. The result is websites designed by engineers following a spec for a committee who approved a document with no one in the chain who has ever watched a confused 58-year-old try to renew their driving license online. That is not a hypothetical, that is the default. Wait, you might be thinking, what about Digital India? What about UMANG DigiLocker Cowin? Those are real, and they are genuinely good. But notice what they have in common. Each one had a specific champion, a specific team with a mandate, and in the case of Cowin, a crisis forcing delivery. The exception proves the rule. Good government software happens despite the system, not because of it. If this kind of systems thinking is useful to you, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps this channel reach people who would find it valuable. So is there any hope? Actually, yes. And the answer is hiding in plain sight in the very exceptions we already talked about. The formula for every good government digital product is the same: a protected team with a real mandate reporting to someone who has staked their reputation on the outcome. That is not a technology problem. That is a governance problem. And governance problems, unlike technical ones, can be changed with policy. So let us bring this together. Government websites in India are not bad because the people building them are incompetent. They are bad because procurement selects for price over quality, because no one inside the system owns the product after it ships, because vendors have every incentive to make themselves irreplaceable, because bureaucrats are rationally protecting their careers, and because user experience has never been treated as a real discipline in public sector technology. Every one of these is a solvable problem. The UK fixed its government websites with the Government Digital Service, a protected unit with design-first values and real authority. Estonia rebuilt its entire public infrastructure around digital-first thinking. India did it with Aadhaar and UPI at a scale nobody else has matched. The capability exists. What is missing is not talent. What is missing is the institutional will to protect the teams who care about quality from the systems designed to extract them. Until that changes, your government website will keep timing out. The CAPTCHA will keep failing. And somewhere in a procurement committee, the lowest bid will keep winning. If you want to go deeper, I have linked a breakdown of how the UK's government digital service reversed exactly this pattern. Watch that next. And if you work inside a government system and recognize any of this, drop a comment. I want to hear what it actually looks like from inside.